Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, and on Android. We recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all the content across the South Florida sports spectrum. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Come chat with us about the Europe games, about all the games that are going on overseas, Eurobasket. We have a special channel for you there. In addition to 10 other channels, plus the stage shows, check it out. The Most Heat Anywhere, the Most Heat information and conversation. Plus, Alex and I are putting our articles that we put out there as well, so they're easy to find. Again, it's Off the Floor. Also, Prize Picks, use code 5, FIVE. Put down your $5. You'll get your 50 to play right away. Football season is upon us. NFL season is upon us. So make sure you get in there now. They've got a Dak Prescott play that you may want to do. Also, all the Dolphins plays are there. Put down your $5. Use the code 5, FIVE, play, and you'll get 50. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation, we the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket, open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or loud to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the court to the streets. Yeah, Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, we're going to be cleaning that up. We discussed this pre-show. It's my fault. It's my fault. I picked the wrong version.
Democracy didn't work this time.
And now we have like 7 seconds of lag. We'll get right to it. Today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J.
Still a
Skolnick.
banger, though.
Sports. We got Alex Toledo. You can follow him. It is, yes. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And today we're going to talk about the Heat offense. So there are all these lists and grades and other things. This is August. We talk about this. This is the dog days of the NBA season. We're almost through it. About halfway through September, we'll start getting into training camp previews and things like that. But look, there's some interesting stuff that's out there because writers are comparing the Heat to the other 29 over other teams, right? So they're doing that with all the other teams as well. And so we get sort of an idea of what the national media, such as it is, thinks of Miami. And today we're going to focus on the offense. There was an article, I think, by Greg Schwartz on Bleacher Report that basically gave grades to every team in the league's offense after the offseason. So what their projection of the offense is going to be after the changes that every team made in the offseason. In the case of Golden State, they didn't make a single change. They're the only team in the league that has not changed a player since the end of last year. And by the way, I misspoke on a recent podcast. Al Horford has not been signed with them yet. It's just been rumored forever. And I did see some aggregation last week that said he signed, but that was incorrect. So I appreciate everybody on Off the Floor for correcting me. You know, I should not be trusting aggregators. But the Heat get a grade on Bleacher Report for their offense. And I can tell you that as I was scrolling down, Alex, because this was done alphabetically, and I'm looking for Miami, I absolutely knew the grade the Heat were going to get. Because I feel like this is the grade that the Heat get on pretty much everything. C, right in the middle. Right in the middle. Barely passing. And I'm guessing that if he does a similar survey of defenses, that the Heat defense will probably rank higher just because of respect for Bam and Spo, I guess, right? Because that's typically why everybody sort of assumes the Heat will end up with somewhere in the top 10, top 12 defense just because of those two people as much as and more than anybody else. But I actually thought his assessment of the Heat offense is fair. And yet what we're going to talk about is whether or not it can be better. because the Heat have barely been C over the past few years. That was addressed in in the end of season press conferences directly with Eric Spoelstra. It was addressed to Pat Riley. And the idea again that the Heat tend to finish kind of between 18 and 25 on offense. Like that's been where they've been under Eric Spoelstra in recent years, with or without Jimmy Butler. They really haven't had top 5 offenses even during the Big 3 era. It was really more so the defense than it was the offense. So let me go through what he says here, but then I'm going to leave it to you to give me ways that they can be better than this. Okay, because I think C is kind of the baseline, because I think they were a little worse than C last year, maybe C minus, but I think adding one player and the potential growth of another player could make them a little bit better, maybe even than C. So reasons to thrive. This is how he lists it. The trade for Norman Powell gave the Miami Heat starting lineup a 21.8 point per game scorer who made 41.8% of his threes. For the Los Angeles Clippers last season, the cost of just Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love was a no-brainer. Yes, I think everybody can agree on that. And Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Andrew Wiggins all return, and we could see a second-year jump from Khalil Ware, who showed some floor spacing ability at 7 feet tall. Reasons to struggle. The Miami Heat ranked 20th in offensive rating following the Jimmy Butler trade. Right, about where they always land. And we're 15th out of 16 playoff teams in scoring, which is interesting in itself because that tells you that you need to score to make the playoffs. Okay, most of the teams in the playoffs could score, even though the best defensive team won the championship, but they could also score. Okay, there's a lot of complementary scorers on this roster in Hero, Powell, Adebayo, and Wiggins, yet no true alpha to rally around. This should be yet another middle of the pack offense and team in general as currently constructed. Deconstruct his comments before we get into how they could be better.
Honestly, I think it's really fair what he said. I think maybe I don't agree with the overall grade. Like maybe I would give it a little bit higher. I would probably go C plus, B minus. I think they can get to that level, which I don't think is like that optimistic, right? Like I think if you're thinking a C is kind of in that range where they've been like between 20 and 25 or so. So a C plus or B minus to me is just like middle of the pack, right? Like, can they get to a middle of the pack offense? Yeah, I'm not saying I would bet on like the 12th best offensive rating or something like that. But I think there's some potential there that they can hit. And for me, it comes down to how much of the off ball stuff can they take advantage of with Hero and Powell, and how often can you play them together? Because I think both of us think that they're going to start together, and then maybe who knows how much they play at the same time. There's going to be different units and all that after that. But when Hero and Powell on the floor, I think that's where we're like one of the ones that I'm most interested to see. And I think just everybody is, because you kind of need them to work. We talked about this a lot on the podcast, but it's two guys who are more than comfortable playing off ball. And even though Hero is obviously very comfortable on ball, I think Powell obviously has some on ball capability as well. Two guys who can do both things with a big like Bam, who is such a great hub, who is already like a natural, like finding guys like that. Them two playing off of each other, man, I really do think there's some potential there for it to pop. Again, nothing crazy, but I really like the way that both of them can do both things. And I'm just imagining like a lot of post splits for Bam, where Bam is in the mid post and you got Hero and Powell running around on screens, going all over the place. Like I think that's a way that you can keep a defense kind of worried. And I think since both of them are elite shooters, like you got to respect it out there. It'll open up the driving lanes for each other. It all comes down to their defense. You got to make the defense work. And look, Powell started next to Harden on an elite defense last year, right? And obviously it's despite that. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
is some, there is some optimism from my end as far as being able to make that pairing work. I don't think it's a done deal by any means. I don't think it's a guarantee. Maybe a couple months from now, I'm saying I don't know why I thought it would work, right? But at the end of the day, since I haven't said that in a while, I think there really is some potential there for Hero and Powell to really boost this offense. And you hinted at it earlier with, I think you were talking about Nico and the growth in his game. I think that's another thing that can help, lift
Let me jump in there, because that's the one person that he doesn't mention. And I actually think, and we'll do more episodes on this, I think that is one of the biggest keys to them being better than C. But if you take a look at, what makes an offense go, okay, how you end up going up in the ratings, there's a few things. Number one is how many guys do you have that the other team needs to double team? Riley used to talk about that. And unfortunately, this is not an offense with a lot of those, okay? I still believe, and I think you still believe, that defenses are going to throw the kitchen sink at Tyler, right? Isn't that where they're going to start, at least until other guys step up and prove that they're going to, in Wiggins and Bam's case, be aggressive, and in Powell's case, that he sort of seamlessly fits as well as he did with the Clippers last year? They're going to throw it at Tyler, but
For sure.
they don't have a lot of that. There's not a lot of, okay, the ball goes into Bam in the post, you got to send a second. That's not the way the Heat are built. So that's one issue. The other issue is, if you're going to get further up in the offensive rankings, is you got to get to the line, because that's where the cheap and easy points are. Now, we talk about the threes, yes, obviously effective field goal percentage, everything else that plays into that. And, the more threes you make, and with Tyler and Norm, they could have one of the more efficient three-point shooting backcourts in the league, if that works, right? Both of those guys, can shoot. I mean, Norm was over 40%. Tyler was close to it. Like, that's pretty damn good. But you also got to get to the line, and we don't really know right now who's doing that. Maybe a slight uptick from Bam. You hope for Wiggins if he's aggressive. Tyler went up a little bit, but I just don't know that the respect from the officials is ever going to come in that regard. And Powell is not a guy who gets there a ton either, even though he's pretty good from there. So they don't really have that. So to me, if they're going to be better offensively, it's going to come down to a couple things. One is Spo's got to find a game for this team early. He has found games for certain teams, but sometimes it takes a while. If you remember the 30 and 11 team, the 16-17 team, he found that drive and kick game like about halfway through the season, and that corresponded with them winning a lot. It was very simple. It was Dragic, waiters getting in the paint, and either getting to the basket or spraying it out. Like, that's pretty much the way that they played. With the Heat, it was with the big three, it was more that pace and space. But they also did another thing that this team, I don't know if they're going to be able to do. They got a lot of cheap, easy points in transition, mostly off their defense. What Spo would talk about skirmishes, their defense led to offense. And I know what you're saying, that the defense can help here. And obviously, if you defend, if you rebound, that's great. But the Heat have been a bad transition team in this modern space, pretty much since Big Three. They've been a bad transition team. So I worry about those factors. Do they have guys that other teams have to double, which compromise the defense? Are they going to get to the line, and are they going to be better in transition, both in terms of volume and also just finishing, than they have been? And on the other side, I'll let you hold on to those three, because I want, and then I want to talk about Jovic a little bit. But I want to ask you, are any of those three things correctable enough that they can move up in the standings? Because the three-point shooting, there's going to be variance, and I think there's enough three-point shooting on this roster, okay? Starting with the two highest volume guys, which are going to be Hero and Powell. But is there enough in terms of those other three areas? So let's get to that in a second. Before we do, I want to talk about Real Estate Shop. You can find them at Real Estate Shop. That's 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. Reach out to Javier and Amanda. They got some new stuff coming here too. We're going to be telling you about that coordinates with everything else they do in the community. But it starts with helping you buy or sell your house. This is a particularly tricky time in South Florida real estate. They service all of Broward County. They got open houses going on all the time. And again, they can get you to an open house, or they can list your house and do a great open house for you. I think Javier was there staging one today. So Real Estate Shop, FL.com. Great people, huge Miami Heat fans, and also family folks who know what your family needs in terms of looking for a house, apartment, condo, or any other dwelling in South Florida. Check them out, the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, or realestateshopfl.com. Okay, give me, of those three, which of those, we're talking about more baskets in transition off their defense, free throw attempts up, because it's not a bad free throw shooting team, actually, by percentage. It's just they just don't get there enough. Particularly the guys who are good free throw shooters don't get there enough, like Tyler. And then the third one is just having somebody that the defense has to collapse on, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think those are all very valid points by you, no doubt. I think those are three of the biggest things we're going to be monitoring all season. But as far as like what's the most correctable, I think the first one with the defense, because frankly, their defense was just not good enough post Jimmy trade, right? I think that was the one thing where, especially me, because I was really honing in on that. I thought at the very least, because we've seen this team like do so much with so little on the defensive end, I thought that them adding 3 positive defenders at the deadline would at least turn them into a very like, at the worst, a positive team on defense. And I was just doing it like I know it wasn't as good as I expected it to be, and I just did a quick refresh of like where their defense was post Jimmy. It was 16th in defensive rating. Like I thought they would be near the top 10, right? And so I think if you kind of get back towards that baseline that you're looking for, whether somewhere in that range there, I think just getting those those extra attempts in transition, even though their transition offense is never great, will help. They need those extra points. They need those extra opportunities. And then
How do
as
they
far
make
as
their transition offense better, though? Because we know that
by
not
playing
a
better
lot of
defense
the.
and getting more attempts at it.
No, I get it. I get that part of it. But there's the other part of it, which is actually executing it. And we saw them run some fast breaks at the end of last season that were absolutely abominable. And Terry was not involved in all of them. Okay, some of them, but he was not involved in all of them. They don't have great decision makers in transition. The one, and I'm going to say this again, the one who does seem to have a knack for it is
Mm.
the 6'11", 245-pound guy who's playing for Serbia right now. This is one of the reasons I think Nico helps them offensively, not just in the half court as a spot up shooter, as a guy who can kind of see everything there, but he likes to push and he can be pretty good at it, right? Like, isn't that a it seems to me like he's not a fix. They don't have LeBron and Dwayne. Okay, we're not reliving the photo in Milwaukee. Okay, and the pass back and the dunk, which I should have taken that damn picture because it was right in front of me, and instead the guy next to
Would
me
have came
took it,
out
and
hilarious.
I had I showed it to LeBron and Dwayne the next day. That's my claim to fame. I was like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "Oh my god, that's the most famous photo ever." But I missed it. I don't know. It's probably eating Cheetos or something. The
And the
point
Heatles,
is,
of course.
and I also named the Heatles too, and LeBron
Exactly.
stole it the next day right out of my column and trade. I think he trademarked it. Seriously, my life is all missed opportunities. But anyway, point is, okay, they don't have LeBron and Dwayne. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, Wiggins on the break. I mean, I feel like he should be a pretty decent finisher on the break. I mean, Bam can. We know that. I don't want him initiating it that much, although he can. He brings the ball up the floor. Like, how do they get better finishing in transition?
No, outside of running like some extra 3-man weave in practice, I'm not sure like logistically how the Heat can improve their transition offense. But I will say, like, I did a quick dive into some transition stats, and would you believe me if I told you that post Jimmy trade, the Heat had the 3rd best transition offensive rating? They
Really?
didn't get there a lot. They were in the bottom 10 in frequency, which very much matches the eye
Mhm.
test. But as far as what they did when they did get out there, they were 3rd. And that was not the case like throughout the season. And I'm not saying that's going to be like what holds up all of
Mhm.
next season, but just to illustrate that maybe there is some potential there, that maybe like with them getting, back to what I said before, if they get back out there a little more, if you can replicate some of that, maybe they can be a better transition team than we've seen in the past. And then as far as like
What's interesting about that is because after Jimmy was traded, Jovic didn't play a lot either because he was hurt, right? So Jovic missed some time. So it's not that's another good sign. You're adding Jovic back into the mix to a group that actually was okay in transition. That kind of stuns me. I don't know why they would be. Was Davion good in transition? Maybe that helped. I don't know.
I think it has less to do with individual players and more about being able to actually just make the right play in transition. Like there's so many countless times throughout the years where like the bad transition plays that stick out are the ones where they should execute easily, where it's like a 3-on-1 and they don't
Mm.
space
Yeah.
out in transition properly. Like people are getting in the way of each other or the pass isn't made at the right time. Like I really do just think it's an execution thing as far as like the eye test, right? Like from
Mhm.
what I've seen there. But you're right. I do think Nico is a strong transition player who has great instincts there, pushing the ball, making the right pass. I do think 100% that helps. And then just to kind of wrap things up here, as far as their offense, like, and going back to maybe they can be like sort of middle of the pack. Post Jimmy, they were 15th in offensive rating. They were 14th in assist to turnover, 13th in true shooting, 12th in
Mhm.
pace.
Okay.
And eighth in assist percentage. So again, these things might not hold up throughout an entire season, right? Because some of that was kind of that end of season swing where there's just a lot of meaningless
Mm.
basketball being played, frankly. But I do think like they can get there with the addition of somebody like Powell, just replacing Kyle Anderson really in the rotation. Like that's who you lost in the rotation. And I guess Alec Burks, since he was getting some rotation minutes there. Like I think it's just such a huge upgrade offensively that if he is kind of like the level of player that he was last season for this Heat team, and if you get the Tyler thing to work good enough, right? Not that you have to play them 40 minutes together, but if you can play them together and feel good about it, and I think like, you know, like there's a lot of guys on this team who can hit open threes, maybe less guys that can be left wide open. They still do have some of those guys, but I think there's some, you know, I have some cautious optimism about where their offense can land if things go right.
I'm going to close it here because you didn't mention the one thing that I thought you would mention. And again, the Jovic thing to me is a wild card because I was high on Nico before Eurobasket, and now obviously everybody's kind of seeing it. But here's the biggest thing. You mentioned it too. They weren't a bad basketball team in general when Terry Rozier didn't play last year. And he's not going to be playing. And that was the single biggest tank to the offense. Like it was like Jaquez didn't help either, but Rozier was the single biggest tank to the offense. He killed their offensive rating last year. Replacing him with Norm Powell. I forget the Kyle Anderson part because he was slid in there at the end. But replacing Rozier with Norm Powell, that's why I think this could be best case B minus offense. I don't see them being better than that, but I think they could get somewhere into that range. If some of these things blend, Jovic pops. I'm not real confident about the Ware spacing part that he mentioned. I just want to see Ware be effective in other ways. Let's
Yeah, I just think you
start
need
with
the
that.
team to be like a solid 3-point shooting team that doesn't have crazy like a month where they can't shoot. I think that's like a
Right.
huge one. And then
I
also
don't
like
think
it's a
they
great
will.
point.
And I don't think they will, Alex, because they don't have a ton of specialists. They have the guys who are going to be taking the most threes for them are Hero and Powell.
I feel
And
great
both
about
of them,
them, but you mentioned a great
yeah,
point there with Jaquez and like shooters versus non-shooters. I think like what the
yeah,
decisions that they make with the back end of the rotation definitely factor into this conversation as well. Like you got a guy like Fontecchio now who had a, you know, not a good showing today for
no,
Italy shooting wise, but is considered a shooter, has lit up the Heat several times in the past. We'll see if they play him at all versus a guy like Jaquez who was a non-shooter last year who could go back to just being a better overall player, but who is absolutely like a guy who gets left wide open. Pella, like for as much as we've liked the improvements from him, and I really like the stuff in his game that he's great at, I'm still very concerned about the shooting. I don't think he's a complete
he
non-shooter.
was
I just
0 of
don't.
4. He was 0 of 4 in the Eurobasket opener for Sweden. Just
Yeah, like he's going to be left
lend it
open as
back.
well. So I think like that back end of the rotation can, you know, will factor into this as well.
We'll see where it goes, but I do think they could be closer to B minus. But I understand. I mean, the Heat in everybody's eyes are kind of C until proven otherwise. So that's sort of where we're at right now. But thank you, Bleacher Report, for continuing to provide this kind of content. We appreciate it. We'll do more of this stuff. By the way, did you know that CBS Sports ranked Tyler Hero the best value player, the best pick in his particular draft class? That's going to be another episode too. That'll get people going. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.